Ethan always believed loyalty was simple. You stood by the people you loved, no matter what. It's what his father taught him, what his mother lived by, and what he carried into every friendship he ever made. And no friendship defined that more than the one he had with Noah Reed. They met when they were 10-2 kids from the same small town, inseparable from the moment they shared a comic book on the school bus. Noah was loud, fearless, magnetic, thoughtful, the kind of boy who saw things deeper than most. They balanced each other perfectly. Over the years, they became more than friends. They were brothers in every way but blood. When Ethan's parents divorced, Noah's family took him in 4 weeks, no questions asked. When Noah lost his dad in a tragic car accident, it was Ethan who stood beside him at the funeral, his hand a constant grounding presence on Noah's shoulder when words were useless. People in their town used to joke, if you see one, the other isn't far behind. It was just a fact of life. Through high school, college, and even into adulthood, that bond never faded. It only grew stronger. They shared everything, including their biggest dream, to build something great. To leave their small town behind and make a name for themselves. And, against all odds, they did. Together, they built a tech startup from scratch, Echolink, a communication app that promised to change the way people connected. Their early days were a blur of long nights in a cramped apartment, fueled by cheap coffee and impossible dreams. The app wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. It was a testament to their friendship, their shared ambition. Echolink became their shared child. When investors finally came knocking, they celebrated like kids again. Charismatic as ever, gave the speech, charming the entire room with his infectious confidence. Ethan stayed in the background, just as he always did, smiling, proud just to see their shared dream finally coming true. That night, they stood on a balcony overlooking the city lights, and Noah raised his glass. To the brothers who made it, he said, his voice full of emotion. Ethan clinked his glass against his. To forever, but forever, as it turns out, has an expiration date. The first crack in their bond appeared months later. It was subtle. So subtle, in fact, that Ethan almost missed it. Noah started taking meetings without telling him. Small decisions about their company were suddenly made in solo calls. Contracts were getting signed before Ethan even had a chance to see them. At first, Ethan brushed it off. Noah had always been more impulsive, more comfortable in the spotlight. He was the face of the company, after all. Ethan trusted him. He always had. That trust was the foundation of everything they had built, both personally and professionally. That trust shattered one rainy Tuesday night. He'd forgotten his laptop at the office and went back to grab it. The building was quiet, the city lights glowing through the vast glass walls of their corner office. He wasn't supposed to be there. But as he pushed the door open, he heard voices. Noah's voice. And another deeper, older, a voice he didn't recognize. "Don't worry," Noah was saying, his tone smooth and confident. "He's not part of this deal. He doesn't need to know." Ethan froze, his hand still on the doorknob. His heart hammered against his ribs. The other man replied, his voice laced with skepticism, "You're sure you can handle the fallout?" And then came the words that would haunt Ethan forever. Noah laughed, a soft, dismissive sound. "Ethan trusts me. He always has." That laugh, that sentence. It hit him harder than a physical punch. He felt the air leave his lungs. Ethan waited in the shadows of the hallway until they left, his body shaking uncontrollably. Then, he walked over to Noah's desk, the desk they had bought together at a secondhand store, and sat down. He opened the files on the computer, and there it was. Everything. A web of deceit laid out in black and white. Contracts, partnership agreements, sale documents, all with Noah's name on them, not their company's name. His name, Echolink, was being sold, quietly, piece by piece. Without him, he read until the words blurred, until the sun began to rise. Every signature, every clause, every email confirmation, it was all betrayal disguised as business. Their shared dream, their child, had been stolen from him by the one person he thought would never hurt him. The next morning, Noah walked in, acting completely normal. He smiled, cracked a joke about the terrible coffee, and asked if Ethan wanted to grab lunch at their favorite spot. For a fleeting, desperate moment, Ethan almost let himself believe it was all a terrible misunderstanding. Maybe there was an explanation, but the truth sat heavy in his chest like a stone, cold and unmovable. That evening, he confronted him. He found Noah in the office, staring out at the city they had supposedly conquered together. "Noah," Ethan said, his voice quiet but steady, standing in the doorway. "When were you going to tell me you sold our company?" Noah froze. For a split second, his eyes darted to the side, the kind of hesitation that says more than any lie ever could. "I didn't sell our company," he said finally, turning to face him. "I secured its future. You don't understand how this works, Ethan. This is the big league." Ethan stepped closer into the light. "I understand betrayal." The words hung in the air between them. For the first time in their lives, the ever-confident Noah didn't have a comeback. The silence stretched on, heavy and poisonous, filling the space that used to be filled with laughter and shared secrets. Finally, Noah looked up, his expression hardening. "I built this as much as you did, maybe more. Do you think your code is what kept this company alive? It was my charisma, my hustle, my connections." Ethan's hands trembled at his sides. "You mean your lies?" Noah sighed, leaning back against his desk with an air of superiority. "I did what I had to do. Honestly, you should thank me. You'll still get your paycheck." Paycheck. Thought. One word shattered something deep inside Ethan. All those years of friendship, of brotherhood, of loyalty, all the sacrifices. The shared laughter, the tears reduced to a simple paycheck. He walked out of that office that night and didn't look back. But the thing about betrayal is, it doesn't end when you walk away. It follows you. It becomes a ghost that whispers in your ear when you're trying to sleep. It makes you question everything, every smile, every memory, every person who ever promises they'll never hurt you. Ethan learned that night that losing a company wasn't the real loss. The real loss was losing the person you trusted most in the world, the one you would have taken a bullet for. The one who was supposed to be your brother, till he wasn't. The next morning, Ethan woke to the gentle sound of rain against his window, as if the world was mourning with him. He lay there for a long time, staring at the ceiling, trying to will away the events of last night. Maybe it was all just a terrible misunderstanding, a hasty deal Noah made that they could still undo. But a buzz from his phone shattered that hope. Flood of messages, news articles, investor statements, and social media posts confirmed the brutal truth. Echolink was officially acquired. Noah Reed was the face of the deal. Ethan's name was nowhere to be found. There it was, in black and white. Noah Reed, founder and visionary behind Echolink, signs exclusive merger with Globalcom. Founder, visionary. Not a single mention of Ethan Gray. He read the article again, his pulse thundering in his ears. This wasn't just business. It was erasure. He hadn't just been betrayed. He'd been deleted from his own life's work. The days that followed were a painful blur. Reporters called. Old classmates sent hollow messages. Investors asked if he planned to sue, but Ethan couldn't respond. Each question felt like a fresh wound. He silenced his phone, shut out the world, and retreated into himself. The apartment, once a vibrant hub of late-night coding sessions and shared dreams, now felt like a cold, silent museum. Every object was a painful reminder of a past he couldn't escape. The whiteboard still held sketches of their app, a collaboration in both their handwriting, a half-finished cup of coffee. Now sludge sat on the counter. He remembered the night they'd promised each other money would never come between them. The memory was now a cruel joke. A week later, he finally forced himself outside. The city was the same rhythm, the same noise, but Ethan was a stranger in it. He walked past towering billboards, displaying Noah's polished, confident face, smiling next to the new company logo. The tagline read, "Echolink connecting the world, one voice at a time." A hollow, bitter laugh escaped Ethan's lips. It wasn't the world that needed connecting. It was people like them, once bound by loyalty, now torn apart by greed. He ducked into a cafe, just needing a moment to breathe. The barista's eyes widened in recognition. "Hey, ... Aren't you the guy who used to work with Noah Reed?" she asked. He managed a weak nod. "Used to." She frowned sympathetically. "Sorry, what he did. It's all over the news. People are saying he stole your idea." Ethan forced a tight smile. "People say a lot of things. He didn't want pity. He didn't want revenge. He just wanted to understand why." Later that evening, Ethan found himself walking along the river, the same path where he and Noah used to map out their future. He remembered the night Echolink was born from their shared dreams. "You handle the code, I'll handle the people," Noah had said. "Together, we'll be unstoppable." And for a while they were. But maybe that was the problem. Maybe Noah never wanted a partner. Maybe he just wanted to be unstoppable. Alone. The thought was a painful twist in his gut. Sat on a bench, the cold air biting through his jacket. A memory surfaced, Noah laughing, declaring they'd grow old as the two guys who changed communication forever. Now, Noah was changing the world, and Ethan was just a footnote in his story. The breaking point arrived 2 weeks later, in the form of an invitation to the public launch of Echolink's new version. The event was inescapable, promoted everywhere. Driven by a morbid curiosity, he decided to watch it online. The stage lights flared, music swelled, and there he was, Noah Reed, impeccable in a tailored suit, addressing a cheering crowd. 3 years ago, Noah began, his voice resonating with false sincerity. "I had a dream to bring people closer together. I had a dream." Ethan's fists clenched. Every word Noah spoke was a line they had crafted together. Every promise, every innovation stolen. Noah beamed for the cameras. "To everyone who believed in me, thank you for trusting my vision. My vision." In that moment, something inside Ethan broke. He slammed the laptop shut and stared at his own hollow reflection in the dark screen. Who was he now? The loyal friend? The naive fool? Or just a ghost haunting someone else's success story? Sleep was impossible that night. He wandered his apartment, a stranger in the ruins of his own life. He stopped in front of an old photo from their first coding competition. They were just kids, arms thrown around each other, holding a cheap plastic trophy as if it were solid gold. He remembered Noah's words that day. "We're not just friends, Ethan. We're brothers. And brothers never let each other fall." Ethan whispered into the silence, "You let me fall, Noah? And you didn't even look back." But betrayal, like fire, doesn't just destroy. It also reveals what's strong enough to survive. Beneath the layers of grief, a new feeling began to stir within Ethan. At first it was faint, just a spark of anger, maybe pride. But soon, it sharpened into pure clarity. Noah hadn't just stolen his company, it'd stolen his story. And Ethan was done letting someone else be the author of his life. He started working again quietly, obsessively. Not for revenge, but for renewal. He unearthed old notebooks, filled pages with new ideas, and began rebuilding from the ashes. This wasn't about beating Noah anymore. It was about proving to himself that Ethan Gray still existed not as a victim, but as a creator. He registered a new domain name. He wrote a new line of code. He began again. Every late night, every drop of exhaustion was fueled by a single burning purpose: to become whole again. Weeks turned into months. While Noah was shaking hands with CEOs and giving interviews, Ethan's world was smaller, lonelier, but it was pure. He worked from a tiny co-working space, fueled by cheap coffee and quiet resolve. He no longer cared about headlines or investors, cared about truth, about genuine connection, the kind that can't be bought or sold. When his prototype finally went live, it wasn't flashy or perfect, but it was his. And for the first time in a very long time, Ethan smiled. He didn't need to destroy Noah, he just needed to outlast him. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't revenge at all, it's survival. But what Ethan didn't know was that the past never stays buried. Noah wasn't finished with him. And when their paths crossed again, it wouldn't be about money or contracts. It would be about the one thing they had both forgotten how to protect: trust. 3 years. That's how long it had been. 3 long years since Ethan walked away from the life he'd built, and more importantly, from the man who had torn it all down. In that time, everything changed. He'd moved to a smaller, quieter city, a place where no one recognized his name from the headlines, or whispered it like it was a synonym for tragedy. He built a new company, Lyra. It was a minimalist messaging platform, all about privacy and real connections. No flashy investors, no staged photos, just authenticity. And slowly, people started to notice. Lyra wasn't a giant, but it was respected. Developers admired its elegant simplicity. Users trusted it. For the first time in years, Ethan felt proud again. Not because of fame or money, but because he had reclaimed his voice. He had rebuilt himself from the ashes of silence. One evening, as he was wrapping up another long day in the small, shared workspace he preferred, his phone buzzed. It was a news alert. Breaking news. Globalcom announces acquisition of Lyra. He froze. The headline made no sense. His company wasn't for sale. He tapped open the article, and his heart plummeted. Globalcom confirms negotiations to acquire Lyra, founded by Ethan Gray. The deal is reportedly being managed by tech executive Noah Reed. Noah? It was like reading a ghost's name. The man who had vanished from his life was suddenly back, trying to buy the one thing he had left. Ethan felt the air leave his lungs as he scrolled down, reading Noah's quote, calling Lyra the perfect complement to Echolink's legacy. Echolink's legacy. Not asterisk, their asterisk legacy. Asterisk, his asterisk. Ethan slammed his laptop shut, his pulse racing. For years, he'd avoided every trace of Noah. Now, it was like history was trying to rewrite itself all over again. But this time, he wasn't going to let it happen. The next day, Ethan called his lawyer, Sarah, a sharp, no-nonsense woman who had helped him quietly rebuild. Noah read. She questioned, frowning. Sure it's him? Ethan nodded. He's behind Globalcom's tech division. They're trying to buy me out through intermediaries. Sarah sighed. You can refuse the offer, of course. But if they're determined, they'll find another angle. Ethan leaned forward, his resolve hardening. Then I'll face him myself. Her eyes widened. Are you sure that's a good idea? He hesitated for just a moment, then said, It's the only idea. That afternoon, Ethan sent a short, direct message to Noah Reed. Subject, Lyra, we need to talk. The reply came in less than an hour. Of course, let's meet. They met in a private downtown restaurant, one of those polished, quiet places with too much marble. Ethan arrived first, hating how anxious he felt. He told himself it was just business, just closure. But when Noah walked in, looking like a ghost in a perfect suit, he knew it was more than that. Yeah. Noah hadn't changed, still confident, still charming, with that same infuriating smirk. Ethan, Noah said, smiling like they were old friends. It's been a long time. Ethan stood, his voice cold. Not long enough. Noah chuckled, unfazed. You look good. I heard Lyra's doing well. Ethan sat back down. Mean the company you're trying to buy? Noah leaned back with a sigh. It's not personal. It's business. You know how this works? Ethan's jaw tightened. Don't use that line on me again. For the first time, Noah's smile faltered. You're still angry? Ethan let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Angry? You erased me, Noah? You took everything we built and called it yours? And now you're trying to do it again? Noah looked down, his fingers drumming on the table. He always saw the world in black and white, he said finally. You think betrayal is simple, but the truth is, I did what I had to do. Ethan's voice was steady, but his eyes burned. No. You did what was easy. You sold your soul for headlines. Noah's eyes flashed. You don't understand what it was like after you left. The investors, the company. I had to fight to keep it alive. Alive? Ethan shot back. You buried it under greed? The words hung between them, sharp as glass. After a long moment, Ethan spoke quietly. You know what the difference between us is, Noah? You needed the world to believe in you. I just needed to believe in myself. The waiter approached, setting down 2 glasses of water. Neither of them would touch. The silence was suffocating. Finally, Noah broke it. I didn't come here to fight. I came to make peace. We're both older, wiser. Let's move on. Ethan studied him. Move on. Yeah, you sell Lyra. Walk away with more money than you'll ever need. I'll even make sure your name is part of the story this time. Ethan's expression hardened. You think I care about money? About headlines? The only thing I ever wanted was respect. You can't buy that, Noah. You're wasting potential out of pride, Noah sighed. Ethan shook his head. No, I'm protecting what little integrity I have left. They stood up, the chasm between them wider than ever. You're making a mistake, Ethan, Noah said, his old victory smile returning. You can't stay small forever. Ethan met his gaze. I'd rather be small and honest than big and hollow. Noah just gave a half smile. We'll see. And then he was gone. Ethan sat back down, his heart pounding. The confrontation hadn't brought closure, just confirmation. Noah hadn't changed. But something in Ethan had. He realized that for years he'd been running. But facing Noah again, he felt a new sense of peace. He finally understood that Noah could no longer take anything from him. He'd already taken it all once, and Ethan had rebuilt himself anyway. Later that night, Ethan sat at his desk and began to write. Not code, but words. He wrote about loyalty, trust, and betrayal, about the fine line between friendship and ambition. When he finished, he posted it to Lyra's forum under his own name, titling it, "What Betrayal Taught Me," within hours. It went viral not because it was bitter, but because it was honest. Thousands of people commented, sharing their own stories. He realized he hadn't just built an app, he'd built a community, a voice, and that was something Noah could never steal. But fate wasn't done with them yet. A week later, Sarah called, her voice urgent. "Ethan, you need to see this." She sent him a file. It was a leaked document from Globalcom. At the top was a name, Project Lyrex, and underneath it, a familiar signature. Noah Reed. He wasn't just trying to buy Lyra anymore. He was trying to clone it. The battle wasn't over. It had just begun. Ethan stared at the screen, unable to breathe. Project Lyrex. The name itself was a mockery, his creation stripped and repackaged, dressed up in corporate armor. And there it was, right below. Lead executive Noah Reed. The betrayal was so sharp it stole the air from his lungs. The attached documents were even worse. Page after page of proposals, designs, and strategies, all lifted directly from Lyra's framework. His code, his vision. His voice now stolen. Sarah's voice broke through his stunned silence. "Ethan, I don't think this is a coincidence. They're using your system, almost line for line." He scrolled through the data, his pulse hammering against his ribs. "He didn't just copy it," Ethan said, his voice tight. "He replicated it, down to the API structure." Sarah sighed, the sound heavy with concern. "We could take legal action. But going against a giant like Globalcom will be brutal. They'll bury you in lawyers." Ethan rubbed his face, trying to steady his breathing. The anger was a hot coil in his stomach. "I don't care about lawsuits," he said, his resolve hardening. "I care about the truth." Sarah hesitated for a moment, then met his gaze. "Then you'll need proof. Real, undeniable proof. Not just leaks." Ethan nodded slowly, a plan already forming in the chaos of his mind. "Then I'll find it." That night, sleep was impossible. He paced his apartment. The same quiet space that had once been his sanctuary now felt like a cage. How many times would he have to fight this same battle? How many times would Noah, his former friend, find new ways to erase him from his own story? He looked out at the city lights, their reflections dancing like ghosts in the window. Memories flooded back, long nights coding side by side with Noah, fueled by cheap pizza, caffeine, and shared laughter. Dreams that had once felt so pure, so real. Now, it was just corruption wearing a familiar face. But this time, Ethan wasn't the same naive kid. He wasn't going to run. Over the next few days, Ethan became a digital phantom, diving deep into the code, analyzing every line of Globalcom's pre-launch tests for Lyrex. At first, the similarities were subtle, things only a creator would notice. But to Ethan, they were unmistakable. His unique encryption method, his proprietary algorithm, even a tiny, intentional flaw he had left in the original code was all there. It was like finding his own fingerprints at a crime scene. He finally had the proof he needed. But what now? Expose them publicly and start an all-out war? No, that wasn't him. He wanted justice, not revenge. Called Sarah. "I've got it. The proof." She met him the next morning, her expression a mix of hope and apprehension. He walked her through the code markers, the digital breadcrumbs that tied Lyra directly to Lyrex. Sarah leaned back, a low whistle escaping her lips. "This is airtight, Ethan. If this goes public, they'll have no defense." Ethan nodded, a grim sense of finality settling over him. "Then let's make it public." Lyra released a calm, factual statement online. "Evidence of unauthorized replication has been discovered. The appropriate authorities have been notified. The effect was instantaneous. Noah's world exploded overnight. The hashtags #LyraXLEAK and #NoahReadExposed were trending worldwide. The court of public opinion was swift and merciless. Through it all, Ethan stayed quiet. He didn't gloat. He didn't add fuel to the fire. He just watched as the empire built on his stolen work began to crumble. For the first time, Noah was the one cornered, trapped by his own relentless ambition. 2 days later, Ethan's phone rang, an unknown number. "Ethan Gray," he answered cautiously. A shaky voice replied, "Ethan, it's me." "Noah, please," he said, his voice stripped of its usual confidence. "I need to talk, not business, just talk." Ethan took a deep breath, the past and present colliding. "There's nothing left to say." Noah's voice cracked. "They're blaming me for everything. The board, the investors." Ethan closed his eyes, a wave of bitter irony washing over him. "Now you know how it feels." After a long silence, Noah spoke again, his voice soft. "Can we meet?" One last time, against every rational instinct, Ethan agreed. Maybe he needed closure. Or maybe it was just morbid curiosity. They met at the river park, the same place where they had once sketched out their dreams on napkins as kids. Noah looked different. The polished corporate executive was gone, replaced by a man who looked tired, beaten. "Everything's falling apart," Noah said, his gaze fixed on the water. "The company, my reputation, it's all gone." Ethan didn't look at him. "You built your empire on lies, Noah? Lies don't last." Noah ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I just wanted to win." Ethan finally turned to him, his voice steady and clear. "At what cost?" Regret flickered in Noah's eyes. "Dodd, you were always the better one, Ethan. The smarter one." Ethan remained silent, letting the wind rustling through the trees fill the space between them. "You think this makes us even?" Noah asked quietly. Ethan frowned. "Even," Noah nodded. "You exposed me. You got your revenge." Ethan shook his head, a sad smile touching his lips. "You still don't get it, do you? This was never about revenge. This was about the truth." Noah's jaw tightened. "Truth doesn't matter, only perception." Ethan stood up, ready to leave the past behind for good. "Then maybe that's why you keep losing." As he walked away, Noah called after him. One last desperate question. "Do you ever miss it? Us?" Ethan paused, his back still to him. "Every day," he admitted softly. "But missing it doesn't mean I want it back." Then he walked away and didn't look back. A month later, Globalcom collapsed under the weight of the investigation and public scandal. Noah was removed as director. Ethan, however, stayed out of the spotlight. There was no celebration, no triumphant headlines. There was just peace. He poured all his energy back into Lyra, to his team, his users, his real purpose. And one night, sitting alone in his office, looking out at the city that had witnessed his struggle and his victory, he realized something powerful. He had won. Not because Noah had fallen, but because he had finally learned to stand on his own. Weeks later, a letter arrived at his office. No signature, no return address. Inside was a single piece of paper with one line, written in a familiar, hurried script. "You were right. Some things can't be bought." Ethan stared at the note for a long time. Then he folded it, placed it in a desk drawer, and for the first time in years, he truly smiled. Because maybe, after everything, that was enough. The seasons changed quietly, like they always do when life begins to settle again. The city that once seemed hostile and cold now felt alive, almost gentle. Ethan noticed the little things he'd ignored for years, the rhythm of morning traffic, the laughter of interns in the elevator, the way sunlight fell across his desk in the late afternoon. For the first time in a long time, there was peace. Lyra, his company, was thriving. Its growth wasn't explosive or dramatic, but steady, built on a foundation of honesty, trust, and heart. People respected Ethan now, not because of scandals or headlines, but because he had endured and never lost his humanity. He had managed to turn pain into purpose. One morning, while reviewing new interface prototypes with his team, Sarah leaned toward him and whispered, "You've been smiling more lately," Ethan looked up, surprised. "Have I?" She grinned. Yeah, it's weird. I think you're starting to look happy. He let out a soft laugh. That's dangerous for my reputation. Sarah chuckled along with him. Guess you'll have to get used to it. The laughter faded into a comfortable silence as they returned to their work. And Ethan realized she was right. He was happy, not the kind that bursts with excitement, but the quiet kind that comes from knowing you survived something that once felt impossible. At night, when the city lights flickered against his windows, Ethan often found himself thinking about Noah. The anger was gone, placed by a strange, distant empathy. He wondered where Noah had gone, what he was doing now. The media had long since moved on. Globalcom, the company that had absorbed Noah's empire, had replaced him, rebranded, and rebuilt. Noah had simply vanished. Maybe that was the point. Maybe some endings don't need a dramatic conclusion, just acceptance. Ethan had once believed that forgiveness was about letting the other person off the hook. Now he understood it was about freeing yourself from the weight of what they did to you. One rainy evening, as thunder rolled over the skyline, Ethan stayed late at the office. The soft hum of computers filled the room as rain tapped gently against the glass. He stood up, stretched, and walked toward the window. The city below glowed gold and silver, blurred by the raindrops. He thought about the letter Noah's final words. You were right, some things can't be bought. Ethan still didn't know what had driven Noah to write it. Was it regret? An apology? Maybe it was just his own way of finding closure, but somehow it no longer mattered. The storm between them had finally passed. He whispered to the night, I forgive you. And as he said it, he felt something lift from his chest, a quiet release. Like exhaling after holding his breath for years. A few months later, Lyra was invited to speak at a major tech summit, the same kind of event that once celebrated Noah's empire. Standing backstage, Ethan felt a mix of nerves and disbelief. He peeked through the curtains at the audience, hundreds of faces, eager and expectant. He took a deep breath. When his turn came, he stepped into the spotlight. The room quieted. Good evening, he began, his voice steady but humble. A few years ago, I almost gave up on this dream. I thought success was about winning, about being the first, the loudest, the most visible. But I learned something different. He paused, scanning the crowd. Success is about integrity, about building something that outlasts applause. And sometimes, the greatest victories are the ones no one sees. A soft murmur of agreement rippled through the audience. Ethan smiled. I used to think betrayal destroyed me, but it didn't. It revealed me. It showed me who I really was and who I never want to become. When he finished, the room erupted in applause. It wasn't for spectacle, but for the truth, which has a way of touching people, even when it's quiet. After the summit, reporters crowded around him, asking for interviews and opinions on the scandal that had once defined his life. But Ethan just smiled politely and said, That's old news. I'd rather talk about the future, because that's what he finally had, a future. Weeks later, on a calm Sunday morning, Ethan visited his parents' old home. The garden was overgrown, but the scent of jasmine still lingered in the air. He sat on the porch, listening to the wind rustle through the trees, and felt a strange sense of coming full circle. He remembered all the moments that led him here, the laughter, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the rebuilding. Every piece had shaped him. He pulled out his notebook, the same one he used when Lyra was just a dream. On a fresh page, he wrote, The people we trust most have the power to break us. But sometimes they also push us toward the person we were meant to become. He smiled, closing the notebook. Maybe Noah's betrayal was indeed the end of something. Maybe it was the beginning of everything that mattered. Later that afternoon, as the sun dipped behind the trees, Sarah called. Hey, boss, she said, her voice bright. We've got some news. What kind of news? Ethan asked, amused. She laughed. The good kind. Lyra just got featured in Innovate Weekly. They called us a rare company built on conscience. Ethan chuckled. That's something I never expected to hear. Sarah's tone softened. You earned it. When the call ended, Ethan sat quietly, letting the words sink in. Built on conscience. He liked the sound of that. That night, he walked down to the river, the same place where he and Noah had said their final words. The air was cool, the city shimmering across the water. He closed his eyes and just listened to the hum of traffic. the soft rush of wind, the pulse of life continuing. And for the first time, he didn't feel haunted by the past. He felt free. In another part of the city, a man sat alone at a cafe table. His hair was longer now, his face older. He wore no suit, no badge of power, just quiet reflection. Noah stirred his coffee absent-mindedly, watching the rain. He pulled a small notebook from his pocket, the same kind he and Ethan used to use. On the first page, he'd written 3 words, "Start from nothing." He smiled faintly. Maybe this time, he'd do it right. Back by the river, Ethan opened his phone and looked through old photos, 2 young men grinning at a cluttered desk, pizza boxes stacked beside them. He didn't delete them, didn't need to. Some memories don't need to be erased to stop hurting. They just need to be understood, he whispered softly. Goodbye, my friend. Then he turned off the phone, put it in his pocket, walked home under the city lights, the same city that had witnessed their rise, their fall, and his rebirth. Sometimes betrayal isn't the end of your story. It's the moment you finally start writing it for yourself. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please consider liking and subscribing for more content about navigating life's toughest challenges.